Hey guys, this is SC from Loose Threads, and today I'm going to show you guys how to hem some pants and save some money. So if you buy a pair of pants that's too long, it's very simple to go ahead and hem them on your own and not have to pay and wait to get your pants back. So right now you're looking at a pair of pants. This is a pair of suit pants that's inside out. And I have my husband wearing the shoes that he's going to wear with these pants. That's very important to make sure that you are wearing the shoes that you're going to wear with the pants. Okay, so as you can see, I actually have him with his pants on inside out so that I could pin them. And right here, you can see how the fabric has been pinned up, so I can get an idea of how long these pants need to be. With a pair of dress pants like this, and I'll show you later, we're going to make a little bit wider of a hem, like a 2-inch hem instead of a 1-inch hem. So these look pretty good. I have them both sides are hemmed and pinned exactly the same, and I think I like the way that the length is. Turn around, Adam. Okay, and so there you go. There's the back of them. You want the back of the pants to come down the heel and look correct. And then the other thing is, you want to have the person, if it's yourself or whomever you're hemming the pants for, you want them to sit down and make sure that the pants don't ride up too high. We've already done that with this pair of pants. So I think that this looks pretty good, but I'm going to do one more test and have him put them on still pinned, but right side out. Okay, so here they are. This is the pants turned right side out. They have kind of a nice little break here in the front. And we've already done the sitting test, so when he sat down, it looked fine. Not too much of his socks were showing. Obviously your socks are going to show some, but you don't want them to be high waters. So these are the pants, and I'm going to show you one more trick that I use before I hem the pants. It's kind of hard to see because this is a dark color, but I think that these breaks look pretty good. Okay guys, so here is another kind of trick to figure out if your pants that you're hemming are going to be long enough. My husband said that he usually wears a 32. So what you're looking at is the inseam of a pair of khaki pants that he wears that fits him just fine. I'm going to kind of move it down so you can see. This is my ironing board. And on top of these khaki pants, I have the suit pants that I'm going to be hemming, and you can see right down here at the end, definitely there's at least an inch off where the suit pants are shorter than the khaki pants. So my husband wears a 32, so I'm going to measure the inseams and I'm going to make them the same. Okay, and for those of you who don't know what the inseam is, this is the seam that goes from the crotch of the pants, this seam right here that goes from the crotch of the pants all the way down to the hem of the pants, and that's the inside seam of the pants. Okay, so because these are nice suit pants, I do want these to be as perfect as possible. So the first way that you can hem your pants is simply by trying the pants on, sitting down with them, having the correct shoes. And ladies, that means that if you're going to wear a pair of heels with the pants, you need to wear the heels that you're going to wear with those pants, or at least heels that are as tall as the heels that you plan to wear with the pants. You can't hem a pair of pants for flat shoes and then plan to wear heels with them also. It's not going to work. So, you know, if I were just hemming a pair of khakis, something that was a little more casual, that didn't cost as much as a nice suit, I would probably just do it, you know, by trying it on and eyeballing it. But my husband says he wears a 32, so what I did is I turned these suit pants inside out again, and I've actually pinned them right here, inseams together, right there at the crotch, with the khaki pants that I was using as kind of a template. And I am actually going to measure this out and hem them right at 32, because that's what my husband says he wears, and I'm thinking that that would be the appropriate spot. It's better to err on like too long than it is to cut them too short, because then you can't go back and add. And here are the end of the pants here. Again, this is just my ironing board. As I've said before, you use your iron just as much as you use your sewing machine or anything else. These pants are pretty nice and smooth. I did have to iron the khaki pants underneath, but you want everything ironed very well so that none of the wrinkles in there change the actual length of the pants. Okay, so I turned the pants back up under, and I repinned them so that they actually match pretty darn perfectly with the khaki pants that I have underneath. You'll see that you have a little bit of bunching here. That's going to go away. It's just that the bottom of the pants are more narrow than the top of the pants where you're bringing this this long hem in. I'm also going to be cutting this so that it's going to be, when all's said and done, about a 1-inch hem. You can see that the khaki pants, they're more casual, and they just, they have the 1-inch hem. This is going to be a 2-inch hem for this nicer pair of pants. But the khaki pants and jeans and all usually have an inch or less as far as the hem goes. This is nicer. We want to give it a little bit of body at the bottom as where the hem is, so as a person moves, there's a little more structure there. So that's why I'm going to hem these a little bit longer. If you have kids at home and you're hemming for them and you want to get more wear out of the pants, you might just go ahead and hem a little bit longer anyway, so later on you can take them out. I will say though, with anything that gets washed a lot, when you go to take out a hem, you're going to see a line. Like, I don't know if you can tell that there's a line here. Even if I iron that line, it's going to be a little bit lighter than the khaki color here. But that is one way of not really recycling your pants, but getting more wear out of them for kids. So once I get my measurement that I want, and this is just a tad over 32, I'm not going to worry about that too much, then I'm going to get the measurement of the amount of hem that's left on the pants. And so right here, it's exactly 5 inches deep. So I'll make sure, I will go around and make sure that each part of this hem is 5 inches deep. The other thing I'll do is, for cutting purposes, I'm going to go at 2.5. Okay, so because this half part is going to be turned under, and then you'll just have the 2-inch hem here. Okay, and now here comes the scary part. Once you've done all your measuring, and I suggest that you keep your measuring tape with you as you're cutting. You want to make sure that you cut, for me, it's exactly 5 inches, so I want to make sure that when I start cutting this fabric all the way around, it's going to give me that 5-inch hem here. And I'll cut in here and take it to 2.5 inches, and then I will go all the way around making sure that each time my measuring tape hits the hem that I'm right at 5, and I'm going to cut it at 2.5. And to make things a little more precise and a little bit easier, the measuring tape's great, but it does move around and it could slip while you're trying to measure and cut. Because these are nice suit pants, I'm really taking great pains to make this just perfect. So I'm going to use this little measuring square. A lot of people use these for quilting. I use these for a lot of things because it's not going to slip. I'm going to put it right on this edge of the pants here and make sure that my top mark is at 5, and then I can come right down here to 2.5, and I'm just going to slide this along as I cut. So I've got it in place, and I need 2.5. Cut down just a little bit more, and I am giving myself a 1/2 inch of leeway here. So if something goes crazy and I'm not quite right, I've got that 1/2 inch that I'm going to turn over. Okay, so I'm just going to scooch that. And I actually do eyeball this. If you wanted to mark it, you could mark it with a dressmaker's pencil. But I'm just going to cut right along here towards that 2.5, as I'm making sure that this is still at 5, which it's not over here. Oh, yeah, right here. There we go. It is right at 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to make sure my edge is right at 5, and this edge is right at 5, or this edge is right at 1, and this edge is right at 5. And just continue my cuts. This is the scariest part because you're cutting the fabric and now you're like, uh-oh, what if I made a mistake? Like I said, I have that 1/2 inch leeway. So if I needed to, that could turn into a 1/4 inch leeway if I were to measure incorrectly. Push come to shove, this is, if I made a mistake at this point, it's really probably not going to show that much. We're talking about the bottom of a pair of pants that's dark. He's going to be wearing dark socks. He's going to have on dark shoes. I don't think anybody's going to be scrutinizing how perfect the hem of his pants are. I think, though, that you definitely want to make sure that they're as perfect as they can be, and you don't want them to be high water, or, dragging on the ground, those two things. So this is how I do this, and I will adjust the fabric as I go to make sure I'm right at that 1 5 inches, and then keep going all the way around each pair of pants. And when I come back, I'll do the same thing with the other side. Okay, so this is the first side that I've cut, and I splitted through that, making sure that it was just as perfect as I could get it. This particular fabric is a little slippery. I would think a khaki fabric would be a little bit easier to handle, or denim, because it doesn't want to slip, but this has this is very soft and just wants to kind of slip out of your grip and move, ever so slightly away from the mark that you have made, or the marks that you're making with your little square here. But you can see I'm at 2.5-ish for this, and yeah, 2.5. And so now the next thing that I will do is I will turn a 1/2 inch under, and probably, I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to do it this way. And you can see this is not perfect, but it's going to look really good once it's done. You can see there's a little bit of imperfections here, but I'm going to turn this 1/2 inch, and I'm going to iron it, and I probably will go ahead and pin it, because then after I do that, I will turn it into the 2-inch hem. Okay, and then I will sew that together. The nice thing about pants is while there is a little bit to getting it just right, there's not a whole lot of sewing here. Like you're going to do it, it'll be done. It's not like you're sewing for hours and hours. And you'll have to excuse we've got a little bit of fur from my German Shepherd. There is a little nick right here. You can see I'll smooth that out with the scissors. Just kind of like this. Just kind of cut a little bit off. There we go. And then I will go ahead and turn this up that 1/2 inch. And so that once I have this turned up, I will go ahead and make a seam on the sewing machine, and I will be using thread that just disappears into this fabric. So the color thread needs to disappear. And then again, I will turn it up again, and I'll have the seam, the 2-inch seam. Okay, so I've said it a couple times, but I'm using my ironing board. Unfortunately, my ironing board is not really quite the right height, but I use it a lot when I'm cutting things out because I'm ironing them, and it's a little bit higher than my dining room table or my sewing table. But of course, at the end of this ironing board, you have this nice little narrow area, and I'm just going to slip the bottom of the pants. These are the ones that I've cut that 2.5 inches off, and I'm going to slip them right there, and then I will use my square. Oops, excuse me, sorry about that. Jostling between the ironing board and my German Shepherd. So I'm going to again use my nice little square, and I'm just going to take this up 1/2 inch all the way around and measure it with this and iron it, and I'll probably stick a couple pins in it because I really want it to stay. Okay, and here's just a picture of the first pinning of the pants. I did go around with the iron, which really helps a lot because this is slippery fabric and it wants to move its own way and not stay nice and flat on that 1/2 inch. So use your pins. Like I said, if it's something like a more heavy-duty cotton, generally you can just use the iron and or hem it like that. And a lot of times, if this suit hadn't been a $400 suit, I might have just eyeballed it. But the fact that it did cost so much, I really do want it to be correct. Like I say it all the time. I'm not perfect. I'm not a perfect seamstress. I can get by. I can do things so that they work and look nice. This one I'm trying to be perfect on, so it makes me a little nervous. But okay, but I do have this one done. This I will go ahead and sew this seam in with the sewing machine, and then after that I'll be rolling it up again for the 2 inches as we talked about. Okay guys, I'm at the next step of hemming these pants. The nice thing about a sewing machine is it does have this narrow area where you can actually take a pair of pants and just put them over so that you're not doubled over trying to sew. You can just slip them on like this and put it in place. Now the only thread I could really find, which kind of doesn't surprise me because I don't really sew with black a lot. I like pastels or pretty colors, but I've just got a black thread, and I don't know if you can see, these pants are black, but they're kind of a charcoaly black, but this thread just disappears. I mean, on there, and especially with little tiny stitches, it's not going to be anything that anybody sees. So I've got this little 1/2 inch hem has been ironed and pinned, and I'm just going to slip it over the end of the sewing machine, and oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bump that, and then I will sew all the way around and secure this part of the hem. Okay, so I did the first side, and now here's the second side. Please excuse this little bit of dog fur on here. No matter how much we brush her, our German Shepherd tends to shed a little bit. And this is black soft fabric, so it's gonna stick to it. Okay, so I've got this ironed and pinned. I have my sewing machine foot down, kind of placed it in the middle of this 1/2 inch seam right here, and I'm just gonna kind of sew it along. Remember, this is not one that's gonna show. The other thing that I had thought about doing the 2-inch hem by hand, just doing a slip stitch. However, this is being sewn for my husband, who's kind of rough on his clothes, and I would hate for him to be putting them on and actually snag the 2-inch hem and pull it out. So I am actually going to do this on the machine, just like I'm doing here, using this black thread. I'm just going to slowly help feed it through, and you can actually sew over your pins. I'm just kind of taking it slow, but and taking them out as I go. You can sew over, you can leave them in. I kind of like to do it as I go. I don't want anything falling on the floor. I just feed it through. And take your time. There's no rush, there's no hurry. Or try to do this at a time when you are not rushed or hurried. That's probably better. Okay, so I'm all the way around. I'm going to pull up my sewing machine foot, pull this last pin out, and pull the needle out. And it's wanting to stick a little bit, so I'm actually going to turn the knob over here on the right hand side to kind of loosen up those strings and then cut them. And here you have the seam. Now, if you were going to hem some pants, maybe some casual pants, I would not recommend just doing one seam, because as they're washed and worn, this is going to fray right here. All this is going to fray, and you can see just with me messing with it, it's going to fray. So that's why you're going to put the first seam in, and then you're going to pull it up to where you want it to be and put the second seam in. Okay, and for the second seam, I'm going to clean up any strings, like this string that's stuck right here, and I'll go through the same process of measuring, ironing, and pinning just to keep it in place, because it does want to slide around a bunch. And this is going to be my 2-inch seam. Okay, so I'm going to just measure this till it's at 2 inches. If I had wanted to, because I had so much fabric, I could have actually put a cuff in the bottom of these pants. I don't think my husband really likes cuffs that much, and I really just wanted to do a very simple tutorial on how to hem pants. A cuff's a little bit different. But okay, so I've got my first pin here. You can see how these seams line up here. And then I'm just going to go all the way around the pants again. And when I iron, I just go ahead and iron over the pin if I need to. Sometimes I do it the opposite way. I'll iron and then put the pin in. Just kind of depends. And that is actually, that's actually a 1-inch hem. So I thought that looked a little small. So we want a 2-inch hem. Okay, there's my 2-inch hem. I'm going to go ahead and put a pin in it. And then a little bit further down the way, I'm going to do another measuring of the hem to make sure it's at 2 inches. And I'll go ahead and stick a pin in that and hit it with the iron and just go all the way around just like that. I'll do that on both sides. One more time, just so you can see. I'm measuring with this nice little, I really like this square, measuring square. It's sturdy, it's not slipping around. You put it where you want it, it's going to stay pretty much. I use it for a lot of things. A lot of quilters use this for their actual squares that they use for quilting. Okay, and so here we go. Here's another 2-inch right here. And so I will continue to do that all the way around, and I'll do it on the other side. Okay. Please excuse my chapped hands. I'm a little self-conscious about them. I'm a nurse by profession, and I wash my hands constantly. So, and it's winter time here in North Carolina, so I will always have chapped hands. Okay, one more here. See, you get the idea, just like that, all the way around. And believe me, coming back around, it's such a small area that you're measuring and pinning and ironing that you're back around to the beginning before you even realize it. Here we go. See, here's the pin that we've started with, and I'm going to put one more here. Make sure it's at the 2 inches. And put my nice little pin in, and then hit this real quick with the iron to make it want to stay and not slip so much. And again, as I start sewing, I'll be removing the pins. The other thing, okay, so this looks a little wide to me, so I'm just going to make sure that that's actually the 2 inches that I need for this hem. And it is a little wide, so I'm going to pull it back down a little bit. Yep, that's better. Put a pin in it to hold it in the right place and hit it with the iron. When I go to sew this, and I think I'm almost all the way around, I'm not going to sew it down here. I'm going to sew it right along this line, this first hem line that we put in. So it's going to be right there. So all the rough edges are going to be tucked up underneath this nice little 2-inch hem, and it won't ever show. All right, and here I'm back at the sewing machine. I've already pinned and ironed both sides of the pants. And I don't know if you can see it, but this there, right there is the original seam, or from the first seam. And I'm just going to slide this up underneath my sewing machine foot. And I think what I'm going to do is, I was planning on just sewing right along this line here from the first seam, but I think what I'm going to do is just keep this edge right along the hem where it's turned under, and just sew it all the way around like that. So let's see how that works, see how that goes. I'm also, as I'm sewing, I'm holding the fabric taut. So my hand, my left hand over here is actually pulling the fabric, keeping it nice and taut so it doesn't bunch. I do that with most of the things that I sew. Kind of keeps it in place. And just sew all the way around. And there's more German Shepherd fur. Definitely need a lint roller before my husband wears this suit. Nice and slowly. And you can see I'm not even taking the pins out. The pins are in there, and I should wind right back up to my initial stitches. Which I did. Okay, and then remember, on this Brother machine there's a backwards stitch. I'm pushing that, and that just keeps your stitches from coming back out. Okay, and now I will pull it out and take my pins out and trim all of the extra threads, and we've got a pair of pants that's completed. Now my husband has a suit he can wear, which is good. And I'm still attached here to the Brother machine. There is a way that you can, there is something up here that can cut the strings. I just usually use scissors. Alright, so I sewed all the way around. This is my first hem that I was doing for the pants. Okay, and if you can see, trying to get the light on there, this is a nice even stitching here. And then I'm coming along here, I was checking it out, and look how bumpy that is. That is not right, which is unfortunate, because really on this small of an item you ought to be able to stitch all the way around. So something happened with the tension in my bobbin. I didn't change it at all. I did take a scrap of fabric and sewed it and looked at the front and the back, and it looks okay. So for whatever reason, the bobbin didn't really turn out very well, and it made this bumpy looking seam here, and I don't really want that. I want this to just look like nothing, okay? Not bumpy. So what do you do when that happens? You think you're a failure, you never want to hem anything again? Nope, that's not what happens. You just gently take this out, and I love these scissors. These are real pointy little scissors, and they get in. You can see that this bobbin isn't very tight, this bobbin thread. And I say bobbin thread because I'm actually sewing it on the underside. So this is the thread from the top. This is the thread that came from the bobbin. And like I said, as I said, for whatever reason, it wants to give me a hard time, probably because I thought I'd be done in a jiffy, and I'm not. So I'm just going to gently lift this out. You can turn it over, and you'll see this is the inside of the pants. You'll see where the bobbin, the thread here looks great, looks perfect, but the bobbin thread didn't work. So I'm going to just gently pull that out. It's a small section of the pants, although the pants themselves, this is a small section to sew. Sometimes if this continues to happen, and I actually was going to have a short class on setting the bobbin tension correctly, because I had a friend of mine who was trying to sew some things, and her bobbin tension was kind of coming out like what you see here, very loose, very erratic, just not a good, nice seam. And so I just kind of twisted the tension, which is, I'm going to push this up here. The tension on the Brother machine is actually this wheel right here. Now I didn't even touch that. I just went ahead and got a scrap of fabric and put it through, sewed it through, and it looked like the bobbin was fine. So I'm just going to gently take this out. Sometimes this happens, and it's good to know that sometimes this just happens. And I'm sure there's a reason for it. I don't believe it was my sewing skills, not for just a straight seam like this. So I'm taking this back all the way to where the seam actually looked nice. I'm going to pull out all my extra threads. If you leave extra threads, they tend to get tangled in your good seams, and then that makes that bumpy, and you really don't want that. So you can see there's little threads here where I pulled out all the way down. I'm pulling these out. These need a little help with some scissors. And then I will put my pins back in for this little section and re-sew it, and we'll see what happens. As a matter of fact, before I do that, I think I'll show you one more time what I did, and I just happen to have some blue some blue fabric here, and I know that would be good because the black will show up on it really well. And I just stuck it in here and just sewed as if I was going to sew something. Oh, my upper thread broke, but it stayed in long enough for us to see that, there we are. There's the problem. That's lumping up. That's exactly what happened on the pants. That's not what we want. So I'm going to have to go ahead and adjust the bobbin tension with that little, this little dial right here. And right now, I don't know if you can see, looks to be about on 4.5. I have been moving my sewing machine around a little bit, so it could have gotten knocked or bumped. So I just turned it to 4. It was at about 3.5. I just turned it to 4. And now I'll try again, and we'll see if that was enough tension so that the bobbin will sew correctly. And I'm glad that I went ahead and tried it again before I did the pants, because I might have been just ripping it right back out. So I'm going to put my little blue fabric. Oh yeah, sometimes the top sewing machine thread will break, and you just have to go back through and put the thread back in, rethread the machine. Okay, there we go. It's 3-threaded. We already have our bobbin thread out from the bottom. I take these 2 threads and put them behind my sewing foot. Okay. And I'm just going to take this little scrap of paper and sew a little bit, and scrap of fabric, and sew a little bit and see if my bobbin likes that better. Turn it over. And it does seem to like that better. Okay, so maybe it needs to just be on 4. Just for fun, I'm going to turn it to 4.5 and see how it looks then, and I may turn it back to 4. Let me get rid of all these extra strings because they're distracting and they're in my way. Okay, so this is 4.5. And 4.5 looks fine. Might leave it there. So this top line of stitching, this is the back of the fabric, and this is the front. So the front looked fine. It was the back where the bobbin was acting up. And since I have to sew these pants so that I'm sewing them from inside out, I want the bobbin to look perfect. So what was happening with my friend is she was sewing, she actually makes wigs, and she was sewing and all this would be bunchy. All this bobbin sewing would be was bunchy. And I said, well, how about we just readjust the tension setting right up on her machine. And I can't remember if she had a brother or not, but just one setting over and she was back in business sewing. So that's how that goes. And so now I'm just going to find where my good sewing was, my good stitching. Turn it over. Well, this is not quite perfect. Pull this out a little bit. Okay. I'm going to put it over my sewing machine, and I am going to put a couple little pins here. I can actually straighten it by pulling it taut on the sewing machine and just put a pin in to make sure that it doesn't slip. And of course, what is it? Measure twice, cut once. I'm going to just make sure that we're still in the ballpark of 2 inches. This one's a little shallow here. Pull it up a little bit. Put that pin back in. And that looks pretty good. All right, we'll finish this pair of pants out. Okay, that worked very well. As you can see, this is the seam that's going to show, and it looks really nice. And there's what it looks like on the other side. So this side is done. I've got one more side to do. All right, guys, and we're back, and I have completed both hems, and this is one of the legs. You can see what the seam looks like. It's really not going to show. And here's the inside of the seam, so I'm pretty happy with that. Of course, so these will get a nice quick pressing, and they will be ready to wear. I want to show you one more thing in case you are hemming a pair of child pants or some skinny jeans that don't have a wide leg like this. So come back with me to my sewing machine. Okay, so I just grabbed a pair of my skinny jeans that have a much narrower leg opening here. I actually, because these are stretchy, I could probably stretch them around. Yeah, they do stretch, and they just fit around the end of the sewing machine. But if they didn't fit, I would have to, when I went to hem them, say I'm going to turn them under and hem them, I really would have to make sure that the other side that I haven't sewn that yet, let me show you, is out of the way. So I would put the jeans underneath the sewing machine foot, like so, and I am going to do a couple stitches because I could just pull them out, but the underside I have pushed way back, so because I don't want to sew over this side yet. I'm just trying to sew all the way around the pants. So if you're doing a child's pair of pants, you'll just have to really make sure that the other side of the pant leg is out of the way while you're sewing. And like I said, I'm going to do a couple of stitches here, just like that. And then when you get to when you start running out of room, you just kind of reposition it and continue to sew, keeping this side, the underside, way back from your needle because you don't want to sew it all together. So that's how you do that. Sometimes that can be a little bit harder to do rather than if you had a pair of pants that fit nicely over the sewing machine, the end of the sewing machine here. The best thing about it though is it's going to be such a small area that you're really not going to have that much to sew. So if you just take your time and go slowly, keep that underside back out of the way of the needle, you ought to be fine. And there's always a nice pair of scissors that you can rip out the seam if you don't like the seam or if you mess up, or you could get an actual tool that's called a ripper, and it rips out seams. And actually that's not how I would really, the fastest way to rip out a seam is to pull it this way. So that's my tutorial on hemming pants. Really pretty easy. Like I said, make sure that you have on the pair of shoes or a pair of shoes the height that you plan to wear with your pants. Can't wear high heels and low heels with the same pair of pants unless you're gonna actually fold the pants up under, tuck them under, or put a cuff, just kind of roll up a cuff with flats, because it's going to be too long for the flats and they're going to be just dragging on the ground if the pants are hemmed for a higher heel. Okay, and if you guys have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I am going to go over the setting your tension a little bit more. That's going to be a very quick tutorial, but it's pretty crucial, because if your tension's not right, you're just going to be frustrated because your seams are not going to come out right, and that's what was happening to my friend. And so I showed her how to change the tension, and of course sometimes you just have to mess around with it a little bit, and the tension that I'm speaking of is this little wheel here, okay, and that changes the tension. All right, so this is Tasha Collins, Loose Threads. I'll be bringing you some more tutorials very soon. Thanks, bye.